What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Gaming Without Parole. Sitting across from me this week and every week, the best blood code I know, ABACABB, Dezrah.
And sitting across from me is Brian Paul.
Hello, it's Gaming Without Parole. Remember how I have nothing to say?
Yes.
Still nothing to say. It's amazing. I talk for a living and I don't have anything to say.
So you just have to do what I do and don't even try.
Points for coasting. Des, every week on
that could actually go on my epitaph.
Yeah?
Dezrah Blinn. Points for coasting.
Nice. I like it. Yeah.
Anyways, this week and every week.
Yeah, this week, every week, whatever. Every week on Gaming Without Parole, we dive into the archives and pull out a PlayStation VR game that we feel like maybe didn't get enough love. And since it's October this month,
yes,
I'm so happy it's October. Like, I don't think anyone fully understands how happy I get during October. I stress out all summer long. I'm drenched in sweat.
Mm-hmm.
I hate every moment. I don't like the sun, right? And I open the window and it's awful. And then October rolls around,
and pumpkin spice lattes are back.
Pumpkin spice lattes.
And that's the only reason he's excited.
Nice cool weather, leaves falling off trees, Nightmare Before Christmas, Halloween,
Yay.
Haunted houses, scary movies, scary video games.
Raking.
The benefit of not owning a house.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, kids. Don't buy real estate.
Yeah.
So, since it's October, last week we talked about the scariest PlayStation VR game ever, Weeping Doll.
Well, I mean, depends what you mean by scary. If you mean by the actual experience of the game, no. If you mean by the actual experience of thinking about, wow, people sat down and made this, that is terrifying.
Oh, please. You're giving it a hard time. We didn't even give it that much of a hard time last week. We gave it sort of a thumbs halfway up.
Points for coasting.
Points for getting it cheap on sale, for sure.
Yeah.
But this week we wanted to talk about one that is a little nearer and dearer to my heart.
Okay.
So, wait, what game are we going to talk about this week, Dezrah?
Here They Lie.
Here They Lie.
Yay.
That's a game that's near and dear to my heart.
Is it?
I don't know. It's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, so Here They Lie is interesting.
Is it?
Well, because it's a launch title.
That's true.
This is something that, PlayStation VR launched on October 13th of 2016, mm-hmm. and I was like, I don't know what games I want to buy with this thing. So for the months leading up to it, I had the PlayStation VR pre-ordered.
Yep.
And I some of the no-brainer titles like Batman Arkham VR.
Right.
That was
no question.
Not only is it Batman, but it's cheap, and I'm like, well, that's an obvious choice.
Right.
But other games were like, I don't know. There are no reviews. I know nothing about these. And some of them were new for VR, and some of them we'd never heard of, and some of them whatever, right? And so Here They Lie was the one that was most interesting to me because nobody was talking about it. And, as we all know, I love October and scary games.
Yes.
And it looked scary.
It does.
But it was also listed for months for $59.99 on Amazon. Exactly. And it wasn't until I think literally days before it launched that price got changed to $19.99.
That's a little more reasonable, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah. So what do we know about Tangentleman Games, the guys who made this?
Not a whole lot actually for me. So I spent a lot of my time playing this game, not so much time researching it. So I've only got one kind of Des Nuggety thing for this game. It has nothing to do with the production.
Well, let me tell you the little I know about Tangentleman. Yeah. I know that they're a very small team.
Yes.
But they consist of two people who have very good reputations in the game industry. One is Tomb Raider series designer Toby Gard.
Yes.
His name should be pretty familiar to anyone who plays video games. And then Spec Ops: The Line.
Yes. Spec Ops. That's what I was trying to pull.
Spec Ops: The Line is an amazing game from last gen. If you haven't played that, you need to check it out. The co-director of that game, Corey Davis. So both of these guys are in Tangentleman. So I would say they kind of know what they're doing when it comes to video game creation.
And not only that, dealing with games, especially with Spec Ops, that have some moral ambiguity and interesting choices to them. Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. Next week. No. So then let's talk about the game.
Yeah. So I think we've got to, deal with the massive, sweaty, horrific elephant in the room, which this is going to be a surprise to most people, but the motion sickness. Yeah. This was a PSVR launch title, and it has a reputation for being one of the worst motion sickness experiences in the entire library.
And I remember when it first came out, I was worried. People talking about motion sickness, and I played it, and I will say that I remember getting kind of queasy.
Yeah.
You play for a while, and the game does make you uncomfortable because of its setting and its tone. And I think it took me a little while to realize that it wasn't just that.
Yeah.
That it was also like, why am I sweating profusely in October?
Yeah.
And as it turned out, that was my first bout with motion sickness in my entire life.
Yeah, we've talked about my battles with motion sickness in PSVR, and this game was probably the worst and fastest I've gotten that bad. I mean, I guess we'll probably talk about plot, but you start off in a kind of a subway car, and then you're in a subway station. I didn't even get to leave the subway station, like the door where you go to the manager's office. I hadn't even made to that, and I was like, nope. I mean, literally, like, mask off. I need to stop and just sit down for an hour.
Well, so the funny thing is having these memories.
That's my review, folks. See you next week.
Right. Don't worry. It's not over. There's more to this. But so as I always do, I can't rely on my memory because, God, years of abuse, no memory left, kids. So I had to go back and play this.
Yeah.
And that's what I did for most of today. And I will say, it didn't take long for the motion sickness to set in. Now, this is strange because I played Resident Evil 7 from beginning to end.
Right.
And that was like, man, no problem at all, motion sickness, right? I played like hours and hours and hours of other games.
And this is even after a year of tweaking, because they have done a lot of work to try and fix the motion sickness issues to no avail, apparently.
And they tried so hard to the point where it's almost annoying. There are options. Like there's one called VR drive mode in the options, and that's click turning. Except what they do is like they it's a big blink when you turn.
Right.
It's
basically
irritating.
It blacks everything out, and then brings it back up when you think, oh, that'll solve it, and no, it still doesn't. The stand. And here's the thing, like, it is an early game, and they tried some interesting choices for navigation. Like, if you play it as intended, as you're walking, basically where you look, your character or your point of view starts walking towards that, which is an interesting way to do things.
Head turning.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's vomitous.
And if you're not using VR drive mode, it forces you to put the blinders on no matter what. So the edge of your peripheral will turn completely black and like shrink down. And you'll see on this video here that the edges of the screen just go completely black until it almost goes down to a keyhole. And I guess that they thought if you black out the peripheral, then motion sickness will go away or won't be as big of a problem. But they didn't even allow you to turn that off for people who don't get motion sick.
Right.
But like I said, I don't get motion sick, and this game still causes problems.
And I think maybe it sort of sounds like a joke, but that might be part of the design. Maybe they really want to make this as unpleasant of an experience as possible.
I don't know. There's got to be something going on behind the scenes that's causing this.
Yeah.
Because if it's not happening in any other game for me, what is going on with this game?
Yeah, there's some weirdness here.
But luckily,
yes.
I blasted through anyway, and I didn't care, and I am still a little bit nauseated from my playtime. But you took a different route.
Yeah, it was really important. This is kind of when people talk about launch titles, when they talk about the PSVR, this is one of the games that always comes up, for good or ill. So I was like, well, I need to play this through. So there is a 2D version. Basically, they shut off the VR, and you end up walking through just like any other 2D first-person experience.
Which is new. That did not launch with that. And,
right.
So this was a VR-exclusive game. So if you ever see any old videos of us being like, Jim Sterling comes up all the time. Right. He's like, if it wasn't for the VR aspect, this game wouldn't be scary. And I was like, but it's only playable in VR.
Yeah.
No longer the case.
Yeah, and there are some things I'm sure that I lose playing it only 2D. One of the things that I wanted to mention, like right when you start off, you're basically face-to-face with this wonderful girl named Dana. And I get this very like summer lesson vibe.
Yeah.
Because she's, and one thing that I'm starting to realize, because I haven't had many game experiences on the PSVR involving NPCs, and having them like right there in VR in this 3D environment, that adds this reality and this weight to these obviously fake characters that you don't get from other gaming experiences. I mean, she's there. It's like, oh wow, she's quite lovely, and this is nice, and we're having a conversation, and you're instantly getting this kind of rapport, just because you're in VR. Whereas I don't think the other interactions I had in 2D, they just didn't have that same emotional content to them.
And they start you off standing very close to her.
Yes. Oh, yeah. You're right up there.
So obviously there was a relationship that was going on. It sounds like it starts off. It sounds like you're sort of in the middle of a breakup or at the end of a breakup.
Yeah.
And you are on your way. Mm-hmm. And so because you're standing so close to her, this isn't like a distance you stand at in normal conversation. Like you were right there, and as you try to step on the train, she steps in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, hey, she's back. And it's a distance that like people in a relationship would talk at. Right. People who are talking very closely.
Yep. Or the guy who hired me for a magic gig a couple weeks ago. It was really weird. Like after the gig was over, he's like, came up to him, hey, everything was great. He was like, yeah, how did the show go? I was like, yeah, it was good.
One of those. Close talker.
Yeah, and he was also like good 6 inches taller than me too, so it was very awkward. Yeah. Anyways.
So I hope he's not a fan of the channel. I don't know if he's going to enjoy that.
I strongly doubt it.
Yeah. No, even people who watch aren't fans of the channel. They tolerate us at best. So this girl,
Dana. There is no Zool, only Dana.
Perfect.
Wait, I got it. It's so wrong.
So this girl, Dana?
Dana, yes. There is no Dana, only Zool. That's what I meant to say.
There's going to be a lot of cuts in this video. I love it. So she stands out a little bit because the entire world is like this sepia-toned monochromatic world.
Yes.
And I think it doesn't take long for you to get used to those being the only colors or lack thereof in the world. So when you see something that's colorful, it really stands out. It's striking.
Yeah,
and Dana's one of those things.
Absolutely, and I think that's something some reviewers kind of gave it crap for this, but I like that choice. There is a story that the creators are trying to tell, and they want this washed out world, and because of that, like Brian was just saying, there's one point specifically where you're walking through the city, and she is just so far away that if it was a normally colored thing, you'd never be able to see her.
Right.
But because she's bright yellow and stands out so much, she's tiny, and you can see her. Like the equivalent of like 3 or 4 city blocks away, and it really just catches your attention. And I think it's a great choice. I think it gets overused a little bit in some of the blood scenes because no spoilers, but the only other colors you really see in most of the game are her yellow and then red for blood.
A lot of red.
Yeah. But not all blood, which is the other thing. It's like, well,
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah. So you're basically the entire time you're playing this game, and how long do you think it took you? I'm guessing like 4 to 6 hours here.
Yeah, I'd probably closer to 4 hours. I kind of blew through it pretty quickly once I stopped vomiting.
One of the game cats thinks we should play a game every time there's a siren.
Like to stop doing the recording?
I don't know, like Punch Buggy or something, like maybe Punch Siren.
I don't want to be punched.
We want to hear your ideas for games we can play when sirens happen.
Dez doesn't want to get punched.
Because if we're not going to ignore them, we might as well make the best of them.
Yeah.
So, what you're doing in this game for most of it is you're following Dana.
Yeah. Well, you're trying to find her, I would say, and occasionally you do see her and you start heading that way. But yeah, you're trying to find her. You occasionally get these phone calls from someone who calls you buddy.
Yep.
Who's basically seems to have gotten to the city before you and is experiencing some things and kind of giving you pointers or tips or warnings. And yeah, you're basically just maneuvering through. And I just want to get this. So
talk to me.
The little monster things that are chasing you down.
Yeah.
So there's 2 parts of this that are kind of, I don't know, bothersome. One, the audio. Now, they have a very specific sort of sound they make.
Like kind of a clicking sound, right?
Clicking, gagging, sort of, monstery sort of sound, which the first time you hear it is really creepy. Yep. And I will give them props for taking full advantage of the surround sound. This is definitely a headphones game.
Yeah, for sure.
No question. And they do a good job of like, oh, there's something creepy over there. But after a while, it just gets annoying. I don't know. And I think that might be coupled with my distaste for, I guess we're going to call it the stealth mechanic.
Yeah.
Because you really have no... Oh, actually, let's put a pin on that. So, how long did it take you to figure out that you could use a flashlight?
Not that long.
Okay.
And the reason is because I push a lot of buttons kind of constantly whenever I play a game. But yeah, you can hit circle and turn on a flashlight.
Yeah.
It's helpful because there's a lot of dark areas in this game.
Well, here's my other question. Does the flashlight actually help you, in your fight against bad guys or anything?
Oh no, this is I want to call it true survival horror, but it's not, because you don't have to conserve weapons or ammo or anything like that, because there are none.
Which brings me to my third flashlight point. So they don't really tell us you have a flashlight unless you stumble upon the button, which, it took me a while, actually. And then, well, one of the collectibles as you're going through the game, you can pick up little pieces of paper that have interesting hints toward the story. Yeah. You can look at pictures that set off an audio track, and you pick up batteries.
And you're like, what are these batteries for?
So you know what the flashlight doesn't have? Any kind of indicator as to how much power it has left or how many batteries you have.
But in all fairness, I collect batteries constantly in this game.
Yeah.
And I only saw my character change the batteries a couple times.
Right.
I must be stockpiling these batteries. I must have a backpack full of batteries, and I think I only used like 5 the whole time.
Right. So my point is, if it doesn't matter how many batteries you have or how long the battery lasts, why even have collecting batteries as part of the game?
Well,
just have my flashlight works.
Especially at the beginning of the game, I think there's a lot of tension that gets built that never sort of goes anywhere.
Yes.
Because there's all this unknown right off the bat. Like you get all these people, I guess, appear in front of you, like on the subway train, and you're like, and then they disappear, and then like something, I want to say, I don't know, like a hallucination happens, like a big fiery hallucination.
Oh yeah, the man with the hat.
Yeah, and then it all kind of goes, and you're like, what kind of scares am I in for, right? And then if you happen to discover that you have a flashlight, and then you run out of batteries at some point, and you're like, oh man, and you find some batteries. This all adds to the whole like tension building, where it's like, I got to be concerned about how many batteries I have. When technically, I don't even think there's anywhere to find out how many batteries you have collected.
Nope.
So it's sort of like it's uncomfortable until you realize it doesn't matter, but that kind of speaks to the whole game, I think.
Yeah, it's again, it's like I think that's exactly right. It speaks to the whole game. It's it's the start of an idea that doesn't pay off, and there's quite a bit of that.
I gotta say that I think when you look at like my little pre-story here about the price, where it was like $60 and suddenly it became $20. I kind of want to say there's got to be a story behind all of this. There's got to be a story where like Tangentleman was like, we've got this like great idea for a game, right? And it was like, and maybe it had more mechanics than this, and maybe it had less, right? But what we got was like this walking simulator.
Right.
It is 100% a walking simulator. It's Gone Home. It's The Park. It's I can't think of other ones off the top of my head. It's Firewatch.
Life is Strange.
Life is Strange is a walking simulator.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, but whatever. But same concept is you move forward and the story happens.
Yeah.
And with very little interaction from the player. And it seems like at a certain point they were like, we need to add more game, and they added the flashlight and the batteries, and like, but that totally could have been like thrown in at the absolute last second to be like more game. And then when they realized what they had, they were like $20.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, that speaks to one of my other issues, the arbitrary interaction.
Yeah.
Like, can you interact with this? Yes. This? No. In fact, most of the time the answer is no.
Most of the time the answer is no, unless it's flashing.
Yeah.
Like the flashing boxes or boxes or other shaped boxes, you can open, and there's sometimes things inside and sometimes there's not.
Yeah, and then sometimes that flashing doesn't trigger to you like right in front of it. So you don't see since there's an awful lot of goddamn boxes everywhere, you find yourself walking up to every box in the place if you want to try and find out. Oh, and does it matter if you find all the boxes? No. No.
There's probably some trophies or something.
Yeah. So I will say, I'm kind of starting to feel super negative, but I will say, like, once you get through this first section and you get to like the city where all the animal-headed people are, I think this is where you get to some of the creepiest, most interesting parts of the story.
Well, because the first part, the first part of the game kind of points to like these evil creatures, that you're avoiding, and you don't really have like any kind of context of where you are. All you know is that you're avoiding these awful creatures.
Yeah.
And then the next part, the city, whatever you want to call it, and the city looks beautiful, by the way. I think the city looks really good. You kind of end up like in a red light district.
Yeah.
Where there's like bad stuff going on. Sometimes it's not in front of you all the time, but you can just tell. And sometimes it's right in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
People beating the crap out of each other.
Yep.
I think somebody threw someone else off a ledge. There's definitely like some crazy sexual things going on right around the corner.
I will say this as a little aside. I mean, this is explicit. Many reviews talk about this. If you want to see someone in a animal mask having sex with a television, this is definitely your game.
Yeah.
But if you would like to watch people having sex with televisions in something really, really good, go read Saga. It's a fantastic comic. But yeah, it's just like the second I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is done way better in Saga. And if you read Saga, you know what I'm talking about.
So it's like the uncomfortability of this game changes. It goes from being like, hey, here's a scary monster, to hey, here's some really demented people.
Yeah, and I think this also leads into the kind of like the theme you're talking about, where is this really interesting idea that just doesn't kind of fizzles out.
Yeah.
You have this really horrific moment where there's this woman like on the ground screaming in absolute agony and writhing, and some of the other characters are just kind of doing their animal equivalent of chit-chatting, which she's right there. And just that like complete ignorance of her pain is amazing. And there's other little vignettes you see that all those are fairly well done, but it doesn't kind of go anywhere.
I know, right? Like I'm like I feel like no matter how much I enjoyed this game, because I did. That's the weird part about all this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like maybe 4 or 5 hours of curiosity. Of wondering where this is going. It definitely gets a little surreal at points. Every time you die, if something attacks you, then like you end up in this like basically sea of blood.
Yeah.
And shadowy figures in like this like creepy hallway that creates a door to bring you right back into the world you were just at. The whole thing is very strange and very confusing.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed the whole thing while I was playing it.
Yeah.
But when you look back at it critically, it's very hard to be like, this is a good game. But I still really liked it.
I think what you have is you have a good setting.
Yeah.
You've got good character models. You've got good ideas there. But there's not a good plot behind it. There's not a good script behind it.
Yeah.
It's just like, all the pieces are there, and they just need someone to come in there and kind of rewrite things to give it a little more impact or oomph. And maybe, maybe I'm the dumb one. Maybe there's something that's so symbolic or abstract here that I'm missing the point. I'm totally up for that. You know what? That's maybe something I'm missing. But it's, and then it comes to like the death screen.
Yeah.
That got... So there is a section once you get through the city. There's this kind of you're in these little houses that are outside, and you're trying to get through. And the monsters that we saw way back earlier in the game, there's usually only 1 or 2 of them. They're now in like packs of like 3 or 4 at a time. So it is very difficult to get through without being seen and dying. So you end up dying a lot. So I really, really hope you like that screen, because you're going to see it a lot.
Yeah, and very often you die and you go, well, I don't know what to do differently.
Yeah.
And so all you do is you hold the run button down and you just dart toward the place you think you need to go, because there's very little in terms of options.
Yeah. And sometimes when you restart, you'll restart arbitrarily farther back than you thought you were.
And sometimes
forward.
Yeah, sometimes dying will just like skip a whole section. And I think that's definitely how I got through some of the harder parts.
Yeah, this is the first game I would say. If you're having a hard time getting through a section, just die.
See what happens.
They'll boot you through.
Yeah. So you do bring up an interesting point, though. With most walking simulators, it's all about the story,
right?
And so this game, the only story segments come from you finding collectibles, the notes, the pictures, and I don't feel like those are cohesive enough to really tell a coherent story.
Yeah, no, it's definitely abstract in the story. I think there's some pretty clear symbolism. Hint, hint. This isn't about a relationship between you and Dana. And this isn't, maybe you aren't really a you. But I don't want this to turn into like the literary analysis
Sure.
podcast. So like I said, I'm open to it being a little more ambiguous.
But I feel like if there was a better form, like the last thing I want to do when I'm playing a VR game is read something. Like the resolution of the PSVR headset isn't great. So like sometimes I pick up something and just put it right back down. I'd be like, okay, good, I found that, I can move on. And so I feel like the storytelling, the way the narrative gets delivered, maybe should have been in a different format. Maybe it shouldn't have been on pieces of paper. Maybe I could have heard like my voice, in my inner dialogue narrating, and something kind of moving me forward other than just following the yellow spot, aka Dana, from place to place.
Yeah, I will say this. Something has gone wrong with your super immersive virtual horror game.
Yep.
If I can comfortably eat my lunch of microwave burritos while I'm playing it.
I will say,
Yeah.
I thought this game was relatively scary because I played in VR.
Yep.
It was also one of my first VR experiences. So I wasn't comfortable in VR yet. But when I just played today, there were moments where I was like, I know something's totally going to jump out at me.
Yeah.
And I was still a little on edge.
Mm-hmm.
So is it super scary? No. Does it have its moments? Yeah. So I think maybe we just need to get to the verdict here.
Yeah. So and I will say, like, it didn't. What I did like about it, it didn't rely entirely on jump scares.
Yeah.
Like, it was very good at what I do. If I do like a horror game, at setting a creepy environment of just like, especially, again, I keep going to the section in the city with the animal headed, people, just that whole area. And actually, one thing we didn't mention.
Yeah.
So the first monsters you see that attack you, they're very noticeable because they have these shiny eyes. And if you see the eyes glinting, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And then later you see these people kind of wearing these golden masks, but also hidden in among the other animal-headed people will be some, like, you'll be walking along and like, oh, there's these creepy people, but I'm safe from them, and also one of them will say, no, I'm going to attack you now.
Right.
And there is no real warning. Actually, I think they're holding a pipe. But
a little bit of a warning.
Yeah, well, but if there's there's one part I was thinking specifically. There's like 6 or 7 of them all kind of lined up against the wall, and you're like, okay, they're doing their creepy animal stuff, and oh crap, that guy's chasing me now. Yeah. So that kind of thing of giving you a sense of paranoia, that's done well.
Right, because these people, they're not the cream of the crop when it comes to like citizens of the earth. They are people that are. They're a little terrifying. You just don't know what they're capable of. And so sometimes they want you to engage in bad things with them, and sometimes they want to engage in bad things on you.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's there's a good level of uncomfortability. That can't be a word. It's the second time I've used it though.
It works for me.
All right.
It works for me.
So here's the deal. This game is $20. Again, probably find it on sale. And if you are a guy like me that you want the physical copy whenever possible, it's super easy to find. This is not the U.S. version. This is the European version. You can tell from the little Peggy 18 rating down there. and it's $20. It's same as it is digitally, but you will find it on sale digitally more than you'll find this on sale.
So I would say if you're looking for an interesting experiment in storytelling, in ambiguous, symbolic sort of storytelling, I definitely say on sale, maybe pick this up. I wouldn't say though. So here's the only, like, probably the first time I've said this. This isn't a PSVR game. I mean, for most people who play this, you're going to get sick. Yeah. There's going to be a small handful of you who are like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I had no problem with this game. Well, good for you. Have fun with it. I think for most of the rest of us, it's so even if you're not like me and have to stop, it's still so unpleasant that you're going to end up playing it in 2D. So,
so wait for a sale.
I'd say wait for a sale. I think that's where I'm going to come down on it.
So I have a hard time with this because we just basically spent the better part of the last half hour crapping on this thing. Basically telling you everything that's not great about it. But it's something that I really enjoyed. It's something that I found more than just like a curiosity. It's something that I really like. I wanted to take my time and look around the city and discover like what it was hiding, and some of the scares really got me. So despite all of the negatives we just listed, I think I said in my review, it was an early PlayStation VR review, that I felt strange for every time I put on the VR helmet to go back into this world, like that I was admitting to myself that I was a little perverted, that this was a world I wanted to inhabit, that I wanted to go back to.
Okay.
And for me, that does something to me that goes beyond criticism.
Okay.
It speaks to me on a level that no game has ever spoken to me. And so somehow because of that, it's so messed up that I need to recommend it, even though it's not technically all that great.
Okay.
So I'm also going to say wait for a sale, because not everyone out there is like me.
Yeah.
Not everyone out there is going to be like, oh yeah, this speaks to me on a real perverse level. You might even be more disturbed by it than I am because you're more normal than I am.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, when it was hitting the disturbing imagery right, it was getting something, and I think there were moments where I was I was engaged in that. I just keep thinking, especially in the later segments where it gets very visually trippy. Think like 2001 and that kind of thing. This struck me then, and I have not been able to shake this. But you've had your experience with drugs and alcohol and being around people who are, and I haven't had much of that experience myself, but I have hung around with people who are. To this game, it was like sober me sitting with my friend who's on, let's say, mushrooms, acid, or whatever, and they're describing what they're seeing, and they're having a bad trip. And you're listening and trying to figure out what it is they're saying. And then every once in a while, they just swing out and punch you in the face. And then when you wake up, you go back, and he starts telling you that same story over again. That was kind of my experience with this. Like, wow, that's really interesting and weird, and oh, God, this is awful. Why are we doing this?
For me, it was just kind of like being on acid all the time.
Well, yeah. I think it's gosh, like you said, there's some backstory. I don't think this is fully the game they intended to make, because there are some moments of real brilliance and real genius in here that are kind of hidden with other stuff. So
we said this about Tethered. I can't wait to see what these guys do next, because Tethered, I feel like was a good attempt. And there's a lot of great ideas. Yeah. Same with Here They Lie. It was a good attempt, a lot of great ideas. I feel like something that everybody should check out, even in 2D if they have to. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm thrilled. I went to 10 Gentlemen's website and they were like, we're hiring. And I was like, that's awesome, because so often teams just dismantle after like a mediocre release. Yeah. And I'm like, they're hiring. Fantastic. That means they're expanding their team and making a bigger and maybe better game next time. This is a perfect Halloween type game, because it's a little bit disturbing, it's a little bit creepy, and it's a little bit scary. Yeah. So this is why I love Here They Lie.
Absolutely. And again, last word on it. Props for a horror game that's not relying on jump scares or cheap scares. Yeah. There's no hint to something we'll talk about later. No hands come out from behind you and try to grab you.
Oh, come on, that was fantastic.
It's stupid. Although I will say,
different game. We're not talking.
I did get a jump from a radiator in this game.
A radiator.
There's at one point you come around the corner, and a radiator goes psh!
Oh, cool.
And actually that actually got me.
Nice.
So, right.
All right, so our attempts to scare Dez are improving by the day.
Yes, a radiator.
All right. All right, you guys, make sure you leave in the comments your thoughts on Here They Lie, because obviously it's a very divisive game. I came out saying how much I loved it only less than a year ago, and now here I am saying it's still really awesome, but I maybe see more of its faults now. Yeah. So let us know what you think in the comments. Also, let us know what other games you want us to cover on Gaming Without Parole. We've had some really good suggestions lately. And we will absolutely be back next week with another scary game. Ooh. As always, I'm Brian Paul.
I'm Dezrah.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.